Hey there, welcome to a new video. Today we are having a look at Filterverse by Filterverse Music, a revolutionary filtering plugin which is way more than just filtering. And in today's video I want to show you what you can do with it. Also, huge shout out to Filterverse for reaching out to me and sending me a copy of this to review and also make a video about, so I'm really honored and I can't wait to show you what I've been cooking with it. I did not expect filtering to be that strong, and this plugin perfectly shows what filtering is capable of. I've prepared some melodic sounds today. I felt like making some melodic demos. I've been making so much heavy stuff in the last couple of weeks, so I needed to make something melodic, and Filterverse works perfectly in this context. I've prepared some chords right here, just some basic saw chords. Saw pluck. And then when we enable Filterverse, it sounds like this. So you already hear it completely changed the sound in a really smooth and just insane way. It just felt unnatural making this patch because everything was also so easy to set up. So yeah, let's get into a fresh instance of Filterverse and let's just make it from scratch. So when you open Filterverse, it looks like this, and we have a bunch of filters. Of course, we have the standard filters like low pass, high pass, and so on in many different ways. Like bread and butter is similar to the DJ filter from Ableton's auto filter, but the filters which stood out to me the most are starting in the yellow, orange, green, and blue and purple category. So let's start with the first one, which is the coils filter right here. And let's have a look what it sounds like on the saw chords. So we have the cutoff knob right here, which we can set up in a range, and also the resonance knob, of course. And here you can see that we get a metallic texture. And then we can play around with more parameters like the twist knob, the damping knob, the stereo knob, which is really clean and perfect for making the sound stereo. And we also have different types. And here you can see when we move up the twist knob, we get more of the chordy feel again. And it just feels so smooth to move this twist knob because you can get so many different tonalities out of it. And remember, it was just saws when we disable it. And yeah, the damping makes it more smooth. And the stereo knob. It's such a clean stereo. Of course, we have different types. So let's continue with the next filter by just clicking on the next instance right here. And here we have a clean patch again in the second filter instance right here. So we are able to open up to 3 filters. And we can also change the order of them, which we will also play around later with. So right now they are just following one after another, but we can also change it. So like the clean signal is passing through and the filtering are doing stuff on top, or we can route 2 of them in parallel or just in different orders, as you already can see here. The next filter, which is insane as well, is the space filter, which is also in the blue category right here. And now we have to enable it. And here you can already hear it's working like a reverb, but in a filtering way, which makes this extremely unique. Also playing around with the cutoff is so nice because you can get so many different variations. It sounds completely different in this way compared to this one. And the diffuse knob also creates a cool image right here. The damping makes it smoother. And we have some detuning, which is also quite nice. And the last filter from the example would be the time warping filter, which works similar to a granulizer. And here we also have different knobs again, like this main one for the grain size. And we can also let it play in a reversed way. So this is really, really cool. And these are my top 3 filters right here. And we haven't even touched the customization options like here, like a sequencer, which works like an LFO, or an envelope follower, randomization tools, pitch detector, which you can use as a pitch follower. There's so much crazy stuff. And I've just played around a little bit more with the settings. So it now sounds like this. So let's continue with the next sound, which is a bass sound. And if you might already think, it's also a saw wave. And the saw wave sounds like this. Just a basic saw with some cutoff. And now let's enable Filterverse again. And I've made a little patch right here by also using these modulators down here. And that's the one I came up with. So it's turning the sound into a really cool bassy sound for a build-up, for example. So let's start with the first filter, which was the clear glass filter. Without, you can hear it's changing the format of the sound. And I'm using a peak filter right here. You can also set the clear glass filter to a high pass and a low pass. In this case, the peak filter works best. The resonance is at around 3. And then I'm using the modulators down here to give it some movement, some more modulation. And the peak is following the pitch. So I loaded in a pitch tool right here, which you can do by just clicking on this field right here and then selecting the pitch detector. And then you can route stuff. So in order to use LFOs, pitch detectors, whatsoever, you can click on these little symbols right here on this audio file symbol. And then you have all devices which are available. And then you can set up how much you want it to be moved. For example, the pitch like that. Or in the other direction, you can see it's changing here already, or you can also do that with the other ones. So in this case, I've linked the pitch detector to the cutoff, so it's going down on this bar right here, depending on the pitch. Then we also have an envelope follower, which is being linked to the resonance right here. It's just modulating it in a tiny way up to just give it a nice and natural format. In the next step, I used another filter, which is also really cool, the next phase filter. And you can already see that I'm modulating the spread with this sequencer right here, which basically works like an LFO. But it's a really, really cool LFO because you can set up how many steps you want, what kind of shape you want. There are up to 100 shapes, I think. And yeah, in this case, I'm using the standard sine wave shape. And you can also draw lines in here, and you can decide how the LFO is supposed to modulate the signal. And we can also, if we want to go back, click on this arrow right here to revert everything back to the original. We also can decide how many peaks we want. In this case, I've been using 6 peaks. You can also go up to 8. In this case, 6 worked the best. And you can also modulate the depth. Which is great for making cool format-rich sounds. And in the last step, I used the space filter. Again, the one which we already know from the chords, to make the signal a little bit more wet and just make it fit the room a little bit better. And while playing around with it, I found out that when we go back into Serum and give the source some drive, and the drive is now going into this processing chain, it makes it so much better. So when you have a strong signal already, which would sound like this, you can get a really nice distorted and also clean sounding signal out of it. We can also enable another oscillator, just make it a little bit more wide. And because we have more distortion going into this plugin, the filtering is enhancing some harmonies which weren't there before. Like there's an upper harmony going in the higher frequency spectrum. Da, 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 in a really, really high register, which is also a really cool side effect. And now we can also change the order of the processing. Like we can let the original signal pass through in addition to the filtering. or we can route 2 and 3 in parallel, or 1 and 2, or 1 and 2 in parallel with 3. And you can get completely different results out of it. All of these sound amazing. Without. And now let's jump on to the last sound, which is a chord sound again. And it sounds like this. A really, really lush and rich chord. And without was just a plug again. And for this, I'm using the tempo filter, which is working like a delay. And I'm automating the feedback with the sequencer a little bit. And then we have the space filter. And then the cabinator, in which you have many different types of amps. So many customization options. And also one thing I want to mention is that this plugin also comes with plenty of presets already. If you are more of a preset guy, you can just jump into the preset folder by just clicking on this little symbol right here, and then you will be overwhelmed by the amount of presets. So there will be presets for anything, whether you are making melodic stuff or also heavier stuff, or just want to alter your sounds. You will find some cool and useful presets down here. And that's basically it for today's video. Huge shout out again to Filterverse for sending me this awesome plugin, and it was a pleasure playing around with it, and I will continue using it in many different projects now because it's just an insane power machine for filtering in particular and changing sounds in a completely different way. And I can also highly recommend you checking out this awesome tool. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video and have a good day. Bye.